All right, get out of the way, Roddy. It's my desk again. We have got ourselves the main event on the way here, the main event for Gamers8, as 8 players remain here in the tournament to determine who becomes our champion. Joining me to my left-hand side to start talking about the good old things, it's Tasteless and Artosis. And we have ourselves a TVT to kick things off here, boys, to get things rolling, as Clem is going to go up against the indomitable Maru to try and topple him in the round of 8. I'm not sure how he's going to do this. We will see, though. Dan, your first thoughts here to get things rolling.
Maru is the best player in the world. You know, he didn't win the World Championship, but he was very close. He's now up to 7 GSL victories. He is like, it's like he plays a different race than the other Terran players. Whereas Clem's great, but he's the least experienced offline out of everybody. He was the lowest ranked player coming in, just barely squeezed in there at the end. This is the biggest mismatch that we have in the round of 8. And if Clem is able to take it, that's a gigantic upset.
I actually like how real you've been with that, because, you know, there's probably a lot of hope on Clem on the other side of this, right? Like, people really want to see him do well. There's a lot of fans of Clem out there as a Nick, but there's a lot of fans of Maru as well, and we all know how formidable he looked through the Swiss stage. He looked insane.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Maru, it's like he's, when he plays the game of competitive StarCraft 2, he's going for the completionist mode, where he's going to try to get every single tournament that there is. Gamers8 would be a nice one for him to take. Clem, look, when you look at a young guy like Clem, I want to root for him too, right? I can see why he's such an inspiration for so many of these players. He's young, he's very fresh, very charismatic. But if Clem wins here, it's basically the biggest upset we would have of the tournament. I mean, Maru should just take this.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, if you look at Clem's kind of last 2 results that he actually got when it came into the end of the Swiss, of course, yes, okay, you're able to defeat Oliveira. Yes, of course, you're able to defeat Spirit here. But again, they're just, even though Oliveira, yes, is the world champion, Dan, it's still not the same level as someone like Maru.
No, of course not. Of course not. We have to be real here. It's like, that's a big title. And you know what? Spirit's very good. But those are not like the same people that Maru was defeating, right? Like, Maru has taken down players like Cure on his way up. He's undefeated so far, hasn't lost a single map. I don't know if he's going to lose a map to Clem. I mean, I hope this is close. I hope that Clem can maybe get a little advantage early on, because I think when he has an advantage, he's maybe the best player in the world, playing off of an early game where he has that advantage because he is so aggressive. But the thing is with Maru, even if he's behind, he's actually ahead. That's how good he is.
Well, yeah, well, we've seen it. We've seen it against some of the very best in the world, like Cure, for example, as you say. All right, but before we actually get into this, we need a few more moments before we actually do. So let's take a look at some of the group results that actually occurred here to be able to get us to this point for our 8 players still remaining, as we have tons of results coming in. And I think something important to focus on, Nick, as well, is before we actually continue talking about Clem versus Maru, is those players that were able to get through just at the very end. Of course, Clem was one of them, but Cure and Solar were 2 others at the very end here. But honestly, they're still names that could quite easily go extremely deep in this tournament.
Yeah, especially Cure. He looks like he's in really good shape from everything that I've seen. Solar, I mean, he's always like a safe bet. He's always solid. I don't think he's a guy we expect to go all the way. If he does, that would be something I think nobody was really anticipating or expecting. But yeah, Cure is definitely somebody you don't want to sleep on. He looks really strong right now.
So, I mean, Solar too, on the other side of things. I mean, of course, he had a pretty decent start to all of the proceedings here, going through that Swiss format as a whole. So it's always great to see Solar here, especially since he's such a vibrant character whenever he's able to go far in tournaments, Dan.
Yeah. I mean, Solar's a lot of fun. Everyone likes Solar. You know, he speaks a lot of English, has a lot of personality and everything. And yeah, he has won a couple tournaments at this point. But for me, in this round of 8, he's one of the fill-in guys. He's one of the stepping stones for the future champion here, I think.
All right, well, let's take a look at the match to watch as well coming up here for the round of 8 onwards and see exactly what that is, as we have ourselves the LG Ultra Gear match to watch, Cure versus Classic later on. That is actually going to be the final match of the round of 8 here, Nick, when you look at that. Classic looks brilliant. He is the remaining Protoss, so I understand why we're focusing on him. But I'm scared for him against Cure. I think Cure's a bit of a killer.
Cure is really good against Protoss, to be totally honest. Classic has brought a lot of really exciting new ideas. You know, we meme a lot about Protoss and they're OP and they cheese and this and that, but like you look at this lineup and like it's one, I think for the sake of the tournament, I want to root for Classic regardless.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's nice to have that the full range of all the races kind of deep in the tournament.
No, definitely. I'm very conflicted because, again, I've said it many times. Cure for me has been one of the most entertaining players all year, hands down, no problem. But then we only have Classic left, and for the sake of Rotterdam's sanity, we need Protoss to do semi-okay here, Dan. It's very important.
Well, if Classic wins in the round of 8, that's the first time in a while, right? maybe the older players were better. Maybe we need MC back in the tournament. But no, Classic is getting back into top form. I think he's probably going to officially take the title of best Protoss in the world very soon. Yeah. Well, I think he's already better than Hero, honestly. I'll give it to him right now. Like, honestly, I was talking about him at Katowice. You could already see he was coming back into that form. But yeah, Cure, specifically, like you said, in TVP, unbelievably strong. Like, he is a killer against Protoss. Like, when he won his GSL, he beat, like, every good Protoss in the world to do that.
All right, well, that's Maru versus Clem up here to try and get things started off, as we are now getting to the pre-match between these two. And again, I think as much as it's actually funny how the contrast between them, because Clem was that young Terran that was on the rise in Europe, coming up against someone who, Maru, still very young, but just has literally a decade's worth of pro experience compared, which is an insane comparison to draw.
It's a funny thing to point out, because early on in the days of GSL, Maru was like this little kid, right?
Yeah.
We were watching, and he was so good, and it was kind of exciting to say, like, okay, how far is this guy going to go? How good is he going to be? Well, he's still doing it. He's still killing it. But here we have Clem, and it's kind of the same story. So it's cool to see them together.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you think about Clem's road as a whole, though, I think there is a little bit of a dispelling of like him not doing that great when it comes to offline, considering how well he started things off, especially. Going up against Dark, taking that series 2-1, looking great doing it as well, as we time to get down to the vetoes here between the two. And do remember, guys, out there, everything from this point on, best of 5 up until the final as well, Dan. So between these two, let's see how this is going to unfold.
Yeah. I mean, it's TVT, so we can't read like too much into the map. It's going to be kind of just like personal comfort level for this matchup, but of course, there's no real balance implications. I do think that you'll probably see, and that's actually what we do see, is Maru opens up choosing for his map the bigger map in Gressfawn that gives you more macro games, then Clem immediately to Royal Blood, which has the shortest rush distance. This makes perfect sense for them because, Clem, he's a very aggressive player, and he needs that tempo going his way in the game. Because if it slows down at all, I think he's just done. Yeah,
there is a minor window where you can kill someone like Maru in a game, in TVT especially, because if you try too early, his defense is too good. If it goes too late, even if you get an edge yourself, he's still potentially going to come back, a la the Cure game that we actually witnessed here, Nick. So it's very difficult to really hold a candle to someone like Maru when he looks down invincible in this matchup.
Yeah, and one thing about Maru is that he's been consistent for so long, right? He really doesn't seem to waver under most circumstances. It's why the narrative with him losing to Oliveira was so crazy.
It was insane. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was something. We thought it was going to be the most basic kind of dull finals. That block was in there. But one thing to note is that if there is a weakness that Maru does have, it does seem to bubble up in TVT. So that's something to note as well.
Fair. Potentially, we'll see how that actually goes down here. I mean, of course, looking at how kind of Maru is going to approach it here against Clem as well, I think that when you actually see how Maru is able to approach it, he does on the international stage sometimes throw out some wacky little things here and there, but for the most part, in a best of 5, the longer a series gets against Maru, the more difficult it is to try and kind of trick him almost here, Dan.
It's really hard to have as much experience in like a best of 5 or best of 7 as Maru, considering at this point he's been in like 25% of all the GSL finals, something crazy like that, right? So like he just has more experience in pretty much everything. As you said, he's been a pro gamer for more than 10 years. It's been like 12 years of Maru competing at this crazy level.
Yeah, it's like when you actually grow up, it's like watching, you know how like when arm wrestlers grow up arm wrestling and actually their tendons are just stronger and everything like that, and then you see him like a little weedy armed like arm wrestler go up against the big strong guy and he still crushes them. It's because the metaphors here is because, I mean, every part of him grew up with the idea of like, I'm being a pro gamer and I'm going to intravenously learn all of this as I grow up. You learn. so much stronger.
I didn't get it before, but now that you say it like that, I get it. Thank you so much.
That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. To throw out these knowledge bombs as we get
So
into
which
it.
one's the arm wrestler?
All right,
Shut up,
yeah.
you.
So
It's time.
which one's got better tendons? What are we talking about here? What's going on?
All right, it's TVT. Shush you. It's going to be Maru going up against Clem in a best of 5.
It's time for the playoffs. We're returning to our main event where only 8 players remain.
Gamers8 StarCraft الآن راح نشهد أفضل 8 لاعبين في العالم تأهلوا بعد ما كانوا 16 لاعب وعلى طول نبي نبدأ في ربع النهائي.
Over the last 2 days, our 16 players have battled it out in groups. Now we're left with just Clem, Maru, Rainer, Beyond, Serral, Solar, Cure, and Classic.
كمية اللاعبين اللي وصلوا معنا إلى النهاية سمعناهم قبل شوي. كل اللاعبين هذولي حتى الآن بعضهم ما خسر ولا ماب، بعضهم ما خسر ولا جيم ولا سيريز أبدا، وبعضهم حاولوا يعني سووا فايت مرة كبيرة لما يوصل إلى المرحلة هذه، خصوصا إنه بعضهم اضطروا يلعبون الراوند الخامس في السويس جروب ستيج، لكن الآن خلاص ما عاد صار في الكوارتر فاينلز.
With $400,000 on the line, there is a lot to fight for. We are heading into best of 5 matches, but Fancy, we're heading into single elimination. This is going to be a nail biter.
It's not going to be a last chance for any of them. If you lose, you're out of the tournament. ما عاد صار في فرص ثانية أعزائي المشاهدين. Single elimination فقط، كلها بتكون best of 5 وكلها الآن راح تبدأ، لأنه أي خسارة معناته على طول تبي تطلع من البطولة. فالوضع توتر إلى أبعد حد.
Well, they've had a relaxing morning watching our StarCraft 2 legends play, but now it is time for our players to duke it out on stage once again. Representing Team Liquid, Clem! In his challenge to get here, he has overcome the players Dark, Oliveira, and Spirit. But he has taken 2 losses to Solar and Cure. Coming into this matchup against the undefeated Maru, can he pull ahead?
حنا الآن في أقصى درجات التوتر مع كليم، خصوصاً إنه هذه فرصة الأخيرة. زيادة على كذا هو كان آخر لاعب تأهل معنا إلى مرحلة الكوارتر فاينلز، زي ما احنا عارفين لعب 5 مباريات، فاز 3 منها، خسر 2، والآن بيكون عنده فرصة يعوض على الخسارة هذه. لكن لا ننسى يقدر يهزم اوليفيرا بطل العالم. بطل العالم مو موجود معنا حتى وكان هو أحد الأسباب إنه يكون متواجد، لكن خصمه هو حرفياً الأفضل الآن في البطولة، خلونا نرحب فيه. من فريق اونسايد جيمنج مارو. سمعتوا نتيجة تحليلي قبل قليل أعزائي المشاهدين، مارو حتى الآن ما خسر ولا ماب، ما هو فقط ولا سيريس، لا ولا ماب من بداية البطولة. 6 انتصارات، 0 الخسارات، ما حد قدر يوقف قدامه، لا حتى شو تايم ولا حتى سولر ولا حتى دارك، كلهم 2-0 كانت جدا سريعة. والآن مارو راح يبدأ أول مبارياته في البلاي أوف وجاهز إنه ينافس كلم.
Maru sitting quite comfortably undefeated means he only played 3 matches in the group stage before cruising onward. Not only is he undefeated, Fancy, he hasn't even dropped a map. We'll see if Clem can take a map or take it all against him.
Clem was able to win against the world champion Oliveira, so he has a really good chance against Maru. لكن زي ما احنا عارفين مارو على الأغلب بيكون عنده فرصة أفضل، خصوصاً إنه هو متخصص في المباريات هذه. بيكون عندنا TVT ماتش اب مرة بتكون ممتعة، وخلونا نشوف ايش اللي ممكن يصير فيها.
Let's bring our 2 players to center stage.
كل اللاعبين يتمنون الحظ لبعض وبالتوفيق لهم ان شاء الله في اول مباراه بلاي اوفز كوارتر فاينلز. يا جماعه بيست اوف 5 ما عاد صار عندنا بيست اوف 3 ولا عاد صار في فرص ثانيه، ما راح يكون دبل اليمينيشن، سنجل اليمينيشن فقط. اي خساره معناته انت برا البطوله، وبيكون عندك خساره من انك تكون متواجد معنا في النهائيات. $400,000 جائزه ابدا ما هي بسيطه. خلونا نروح للمعلقين نتكلم اكثر.
The winner moves on in the playoff. The loser goes home in this TVT. Let's see how it all plays out. Throwing it over to you guys.
Welcome everyone to the beginning of the round of 8 of Gamers 8. We do have Maru versus Clem, a Terran versus Terran best of 5 that promises to deliver at least a good amount of action, if not some straight up incredible games. I am very much looking forward to this. Clem has been on the rise continuously in this matchup. Maru settled the fact that he was the greatest TVT player a long time ago. So we are just looking to see if Clem can actually topple this great legend that is Maru, or if Maru continues to prove to be undefeatable in the matchup.
It has been a long, hard road for Clem. He has really had trials and tribulations, especially against Korean TVT. You know, I remember seeing him against Maru back in season finals we had 2-3 years ago when we played online, and it was just, Maru was so comfortable playing Ravens and Clem wasn't in the late game, and it was a definite difference between them. Clem took his TVT and he's manipulated it, he's maneuvered it, and he's done so many things, and you've seen his progress, especially in Europe. From being 50-50 with the Hero Marine, he is now dominant in that matchup, but he still struggles against the Korean Terran players. He has not got a good track record against Maru. It's going to be a tough series. The only saving grace is arguably Maru had a little bit of a blip against Cure where he kind of probably should have lost game 1, but then he brought that game 1 back, so that kind of gets, like, you know, a positive for Maru as well.
Yeah, well, we already know, you know, like, looking at someone almost beating Maru doesn't really count.
No.
It just doesn't, because you can get the same thing happening for you, and that's all well and good, but then Maru brings it back anyway. Now, perhaps what Clem might have studied in the minimum amount of time that he has had to prepare for this is, in fact, the build of Gumiho. But we will find out soon. As we begin this best of 5 on Gressfon. In the bottom right for Team Liquid, he is the blue Terran, Clem.
In the top left-hand side from Onside Gaming, let's see if he can keep his undefeated record intact. It is Maru.
Gumiho, of course, one of the only Terrans in recent time to actually defeat Maru. I think most importantly, consistently defeat Maru, because of course, within the last year we have seen Oliveira defeat Maru in the matchup, but that was part of a dream run where all the momentum was behind Oliveira, the stars truly aligned. It was Gumiho that was able to tackle Maru twice and defeat him twice. One in a very, very, very close best of 5, and another in a less close best of 3, where it went 0-2 in Gumiho's favor. So, yeah, if Clem's going to be looking for some inspiration, that might be where he has to look at it. And I would say, well, maybe it's tough for Clem to copy Gumiho's style, and I think that is, you know, overall true. Gumiho just showed up straight good TVT, actually, to defeat Maru in some of those games.
Especially the one that was in Sweden. That was a wild series where there was even a couple battle cruisers involved. I remember it wasn't on the stream, right? We were kind of like peering over Gumiho's shoulder, looking on the B stream a little bit. We were like, oh my god, is he actually doing this? And then he went and did it. That was some really wild times. So, yeah, no, he kind of showed up. He kind of popped off. And honestly, like, when I go into, I know Clem doesn't have a great track record in Korean TVT. I know he's struggled against Maru. I don't not believe in Clem in this series. He's got to be the underdog, sure. But if Clem comes out and wins, yeah, it's a surprise, but I could see it happening. One time, Clem has got to figure out this Korean TVT. He's a great player. He can improve. He can adapt. He's shown that in other matchups. At some point, this TVT is going to click for him. I really feel it. It could be any single series, so let's see.
It seems to have clicked for him against all the other countries, you know, just the Korean Terran, that magical phrase that kind of eludes him, but it didn't just click with him as far as the non-Koreans. It's clicked, and then it clicked. The most recent match I saw of Clem in a TVT in a best of 5, he dominated. It was actually just no contest whatsoever against a very good Terran in the form of Spirit. So, I mean, he's continuing to improve in that department, but absolutely it just remains to be against the Korean Terran, against Maru, the best TVT player in the world. Even when it looks like he might not be anymore, he brings it back and it's all okay, and we call him the best in the world again.
We absolutely do, as we do just have ourselves that starport coming down, a reactor coming up on the side of Maru. Clem going to get a tech lab on his factory. So we're starting to see some differences. Clem already had that reactor down, so he's going to get 2 Reapers up right now. So while Maru had the faster second Reaper, he will now start to fall behind in that count just a little tiny bit. So minor differences early, different choices. Clem's build just that little bit greedier. And as we get, oh, I love this view, ZG. A little bit of Clem point of view for a couple moments here. Beautiful.
Yeah. do like that. You know, we've always wanted to highlight just how fast these players are, and really to figure out how fast they are. You got to see like the movement, the keyboard, the mouse, and then their actual cursor just running around. Both of these players, very, very, very fast. Maru might occasionally in interviews talk about how like he doesn't feel quite fast today, or you know, he's also had some soreness in his arms and whatnot. But you know, it's always that kind of almost humbleness that we have to consider as well. He's just generally one of the fastest players.
He really is. As Command Centers get going on to the natural expansion, it is Clem that's on that little bit of a lead. Orbital is already morphed in on the natural, and he is going to be getting a medevac of his own. It's going to be interesting because Maru's going to strike first, so Clem, we'll see how far across the map he will be with his units. It gets very awkward if they avoid each other completely. Then Maru has the heads up of being first to attack, which is a little bit of an advantage in itself. These early game TVT situations can get pretty wild and dangerous. Maru is so good at them. Let's see if Clem can keep up.
Well, we're going to see in just 1 second. They're actually going to get the ball rolling from Maru. Now, he takes a bit of a conservative approach, right? He actually sieges up the tank very far back. He's not even involved in the fight. Well, what fight is there, really? It's just SCVs running away. But we kind of have to expedite this, right? Because Clem certainly is. He actually dropped that tank on siege, is going into the natural, trying to head up that ramp as well. Now is going to siege up as Maru started to defend the high ground. And we have both players just looking to hold on to their production and their worker counts. Clem currently 3 ahead, but Maru has breached the supply depot, going after the reactor, taking out the production of his opponent. Hot pickup on the Reaper to reheal that as well. Both players also supply blocked. It is very messy, Wardy.
Oh, it absolutely is. It's really down to what they already have. Clem gets a defensive siege tank out. It will siege up. That will limit what Maru can do here. I think that Clem barracks is going to go down no matter what, though. Maru is going to save his. That's a bit of a difference. That is going to change things a bit further down the line here as those Marines go a bit too far forward on that picture-in-picture. And now Maru still has that siege up, hitting that starport. He's going to unsiege. He's going to begin to back away. And where do we settle down from all of this? Clem has a couple more SCVs in the low ground that will drop, that will more or less even up the worker count now. He's about to have another Raven popping out, while Maru has decided to go for a Banshee.
Yeah, you know, Maru and Banshee's really becoming a thing. So hot right now. Like, he's just been using them not just, of course, earlier in this tournament, but also in the GSL. And notice that that command center is getting awfully low. That was starting to become a bit concerning, but nothing to follow up on the kill. And there we do have the break. The unsiege happened prior to the Matrix. Very nice timing there for Maru to pick up and, well, hopefully get away. But that Cyclone lock-on has something to say. It's going to grab the medevac, but the tank will end up surviving.
Clem loses his tank on the other side, a real duel of micro between the two of them. His barracks rebuilding. Look at this behind, though. Maru has a 3rd CC building. So as you kind of look at the numbers, you're like, oh yeah, workers kind of even, maybe a bit Clem favored, army supply similar. 3rd CC from Maru is absolutely huge. It's going to be a massive eco advantage further down the line. Clem has a couple more barracks coming up sooner, so very different approaches. He's going to 2-base this for a little bit.
Yeah, that's definitely a decision to make here, guys. Like, usually in the last years, I guess, 3 years feels like, you know, 3rd CC has been the option, 2-base option reserved for, well, I guess once in a best of 5, perhaps, so that's when Clem's choosing to do it. But generally, it is just right into that 3rd CC, get the economy, because honestly, players got so good at defending the 2-base attacks, right? Mm-hmm. Whether they were, you know, just 2-base first and then 3CC, or super committed even. But Clem will know, don't have the faster army, slower economy, and a little bit slower now. This Banshee has gotten in. The repair on the SCV is not quite working out, and Clem loses 6 to put him down by 3.
Clem, I believe, is up at Raven because of this. Is Clem on 3 barracks, or is he only on 2?
Yeah.
He's definitely on 3?
No, you're right. He's only on
Yes, this is what I realized after I made my initial statement, is that one of those barracks was still the rebuild barracks. I just thought it had already been done, so I guess he just added the extra on to make up a little bit of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. So, I mean, oh yeah, I was going to say, inevitably we get that 3rd racks. It's 1, 3, 5, basically, guys. And we do have that production now getting settled, really for both players, as Maru adds on his production, too. It's the upgrades now that Maru is getting ahead on. I mean, Clem should have the, you know, the slight army supply lead, and he absolutely does, but then actually making that work against another Terran who's playing defensively, and particularly Maru, just, you know, certainly 9 or 10 army supply isn't really going to be all that much of an issue for Maru.
You know, it's a really kind of give and take situation where you look at Clem, he's got a bit of army supply, but then Maru's got the upgrades a little bit sooner here as well. Clem has a bit of a faster stim, so a lot of bit of back and forth. Clem has an extra Raven, which I think goes a long way in these games as well. We know how critical the Raven can be in dictating how a TVT goes. As Maru for now will just move forward to take a third base into position. As Ripper going to grab an SCV as well, so just go and be nabbing that and just stopping Clem from getting some of his map control set up for later on in this game.
Surprisingly useful later to Reapers, actually. I saw something interesting, which, I mean, it's really been a funky start to this game, but very often we have a player in this matchup choose to go faster medevacs and then someone else go into a few more Vikings, right? And Maru actually scanned Clem's second barracks with the stem already researching, so he knows that he's going to have slightly faster Marine production, slightly faster stim, and he's not going to go into the typical defensive maneuver, which again is going into those Vikings. He also went for medevacs. This actually might open up a counterattack opportunity, but it might not matter, as actually Clem is going to go in for it. The Ravens from the right side, they can't give the Marines heading into that third base of Maru, and Maru has no defensive setup with all of his tanks taken out of the equation.
Yeah, his Marines are out down to the south, and he will win the Marine on Marine fight, but of course now Clem has a massive tank advantage, 7-1. That's the one siege tank right there. We do have one interference matrix left on the Ravens of Clem as well, and as he kills 11 SCVs, Clem deadly with this push, and just so decisive. He knew what he wanted to do. This tank will not get matrix before it unsieges and pulls away, but it gets tanked over anyways. And well, Maru is in a world of trouble, counterattacking to get something done.
Yeah, well, I think this was his plan, right? He was hoping that his tanks would hold back at home for an extended period of time, and then we'd backstab with those medevacs, but that has really turned around on him as he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time every single moment. Now he's coming in, but Clem has had some time to gather reinforcements, perhaps not enough. He recognizes it. He's going to pull the third CC. He's going to have to repair, so save the SCVs or save the command center. He's going to go ahead and lose the SCVs here, but if he can continue, I guess, moving into Maru's natural and then perhaps even main base, the sacrifice of those SCVs are definitely worth it. As you can see, Maru not exactly in a good economic place either.
Yeah, Clem just edging forward a little bit. All of his tanks on siege at once. He drops an anti-arm missile as well, realizing this is an important fight. Maru's army is not going to break through, and Clem opens with a 1-0 lead with a really solid counterattack at the right moment. What advantage did he have? He had the Raven advantage.
Yes.
He just had Raven energy and Raven numbers, and he just was able to break through the tank line. Double whammy that Maru was moving out at the same time down the left, but just great use of what he had, and Clem takes a 1-0 lead.
It was kind of like a triple whammy, I suppose, which is just that, yeah, the Marines were out of position, and then also there was no sight on where the Ravens were maneuvering to, you know? Usually when that dynamic happens, you are very keenly aware that that extra Raven could pop all your tanks, so you're kind of searching out to see if they're going to pull the trigger or not. But Maru was just completely unaware that Clem was going to move in like that, already have his Ravens coming from a different direction, and then actually pulled the trigger as confidently as he did. So Maru was just completely out of position, completely out of the know, and when that happens, you really don't have a chance, because, you know, at the very least, even if he would no doubt be overwhelmed at his third, he could have pulled all of his tanks back to defend like one area. But they actually had a depth to them that worked out not well for Maru at all.
There's a little Banshee, got a few workers, but yeah, this was the moment. The Ravens coming in from that side. You saw a couple of Matrixes go down, but just no Marines means that this was purely just Clem able to push in. And if the Marines were there for Maru, they have combat shield over no combat shield.
Yeah.
That alone is a pretty big advantage. He was moments away from getting his 1-1 up in advantage as well. It was a real shame. And Clem, just very mature, says, right, give up the SCVs, save the CC, because I know I'm killing SCVs myself. Very well played. A chaotic start, a strong follow-up. Maru the one to make the bigger mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, I was trying to kind of build up to that potential gamble, but then the gamble happened even faster than I was thinking of, you know, which is that medevac move out. If you have those Vikings, you're at the very least going to have all your army at the right place defensively at home. The Vikings might not find the Ravens. You might still get overwhelmed because they can't kill them fast enough, sure, but you're definitely all at home. And then, well, Maru wanted to do a little bit on the action on the map himself, and didn't work out. And now we go into game 2 in the bottom left. Taking that first game, he is Team Liquid's Clem.
In the top right-hand corner, our red Terran player looking to bounce back. He's done it many times before. Can he come back from his first map loss of the tournament? It's Onside Gaming's Maru.
This is a really important first map victory for Clem, not just for the obvious reasons, some momentum behind him, and just, you know, one win closer to winning the entire best of 5, but because There was a best of 5 they played a couple of years ago at this point, to be fair, but it was still at a time where we were giving Clem a little bit of credit up against the almost undefeatable Maru, which are like, well, we could at least see a game or two. And we'd be really excited to see the non-Korean do that against the, you know, the best TVT player in the world, especially at that time. And then Clem got demolished. Like 3-0 doesn't actually quite explain it, to be a little harsh right now.
That series was brutal. 15
Yes.
minutes.
Yes.
It was one of the fastest best of 5s we'd seen in a while. Yeah, that was when we were in Sweden casting, right? Season finals.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, for Clem, I don't know if he's thinking about that. It's actually, thankfully, a lot of these pros, when you ask them, like, hey, do you remember this good moment or bad moment? They're actually like, oh, no, I didn't even realize. Like, I forgot that happened. Like, Clem thought he had lost against Haas all the time.
Yeah.
He actually won, like, 3 out of 4 series. But anyways, but if he was, there's that confirmation. Like, that's not going to happen again. So, big confidence booster for Clem.
Yep, really nice to get that first map. Definitely, I think confidence is something he's looking for. And, you know, to be fair, if there's one thing we've seen of Maru this year, he has sometimes gotten a little bit kind of off-kilter when he's gone down a game, right? I mean, we can't forget what happened in Katowice. He did not look like himself. Like,
No.
you know, he lost a map, and then he lost a second, and then just looked as though he couldn't win a game for the life of him.
Yeah, those first couple of games, and him and Oliveira were just simply like high-class TVT. Very well done, very smart. Only a couple of like forced mistakes that really made the difference. But then it was very clear that Maru was making more uncharacteristic mistakes. And yeah, the magic of Oliveira, you know, won the day. But for Clem, you know, I think he was given a little bit of a good type of TVT for that first game, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not guaranteed it's going to happen again, not just the mano-a-mano on the early units, which they're once again doing, by the way, but of course that base trade. You know, it does happen in TVT. I'm not going to necessarily call it rare, but definitely doesn't always happen and doesn't always work out in your favor.
Clem going to poke forward and see if he can find something lucky with these couple of Reapers. He's going to get that SCV, actually, and gets away before the Hellion gets too involved. His own Hellion showing up. He has a 1 Reaper advantage here, gets a couple shots off, and will just continue to control this low ground for just a moment or two. His own starport on the way up as Maru delayed on that CC, and just about getting it going once again. Now he has the numbers advantage. Can he chase for anything? Apparently not.
Nope. Maru going into that Cyclone already is going to give him a very powerful defensive unit. Clem is continuing to add on Reapers and Hellion, so he's actually going to kind of look to even bust, believe it or not. The Cyclone is not out. Once again, the command center is delayed. You have to wait for the Cyclone, especially as your own Reapers go for the counterattack. Clem might not have his units back at home. He's been rallying them forward. Now he does not. 1 Hellion and 2 Reapers are about to pop. The Hellion cannot take this on by itself. 4 SCVs dead for Clem as he actually takes the engagement on the other side of the map. He is trying to take this engagement. It's not a mistake. He actually jumps on top of the Cyclone, is chasing after it. It's hitting awfully low. 2 Reapers looking for the kill. The repair comes in. It's not going to be good enough. And Clem does find a pretty important early game TVT unit and is starting to get some SCV kills himself.
Yeah, because he's got more Reapers as well, so he can continue to pressure after this. He might not have gotten the CC, which was his initial aim, but getting that Cyclone allows him to continue being a bit more aggressive. Now only 1 Cyclone out for Maru as the second one finishes up here. And I think most importantly, because of this, he got in and got some SCVs himself. So he undid a lot of what Maru was able to do initially with his Reapers. So it turns out to be a pretty even work account. Only Maru's orbital is much later than Clem, so Clem will have an eco advantage here.
I wonder if this is how the series is going to go. I mean, if it is, then obviously it's favorable for Clem, but not just that Clem is getting these little victories, but specifically, they seem to be based around not just micro, but Maru making a little bit of a gambly decision. Again, sending his 3 Reapers across the map, something that would have helped defend the Cyclone. And a little bit of luck here as Clem does spot the medevac on the way.
You know, to build on that, actually, Maru has been very aggressive all tournament long. Like, he's come in very aggressive, wants to just get in, kill his opponent. He's not been afraid to be aggro. And if that's kind of, you know, part of what he's doing here in this TVT, well, Clem right now is maybe taking advantage of it. Clem knew this medevac was coming. He was a little out of position still, though, with the exact direction. He will drop an auto turret down as the Cyclone cannot stay locked on. He will just lose his Cyclone. And now his Marines do get in position. Can he get rid of the medevac? It came very far forward, and, well, we get rid of a couple more Marines.
And by that, you basically are done with dealing with the medevac drop. Still excellent if you could go ahead and kill that. But, you know, if it's a little bit healthier, if it's got 5 Marines instead of 2, it could technically do something a little bit more. But no, it's a complete withdrawal at this point, meaning that Clem can focus a little bit up at home. Maru want to do a little bit more with that. He does still have a worker lead, and his 3rd CC is a little bit faster. So despite some early game advantages from Clem on the battles, I suppose, the actual foundation of this TVT is quite close.
Yep, no, absolutely is... The Cyclone will just stay at the front. Maru maybe has a little bit of map control because of that Cyclone still, where Clem does not have one, but we really are now in this phase of just sitting back, and Clem going to go straight to Vikings this time around, so a very different vibe from last game as well. As we do see Maru's reactor on a starport, we'll see what he chooses. Also going to go into some Vikings, and that's just going to be our next setup for this TVT. Vikings from both, and now it kind of becomes this weird question, who stops building Vikings first? Who's going to give up that air control?
Yeah, exactly. And also, I wonder if... Is Maru going to continue trying to be aggressive and then make potentially mistakes with that? Or is it Clem going to continue to be the aggressor? And we have our answer, actually. Clem already moving out in the middle of the map. Sometimes Terrans do this just to make sure they have the high ground of the middle of Royal Blood, and it seems to be maybe the case here. Clem wants to get some scouting done first with 2 Reapers headed into the main, I assume? Just see the timing on the 3rd CC, the timing of the barracks. You know, is it already 3? Is it already 5? Scan, simply, from Maru as he lost his Reapers earlier.
Yeah, basically they're looking to do the same thing in different ways. Like you say, Maru's Reapers are no longer here. So Clem utilizing what he still has. He puts himself in a great position, but perhaps catch these medevacs. If he matrix that medevac, it cannot unload. He's going to get the Cyclone out at least. Matrix is the Cyclone as well. Still a dead medevac and a few Marines.
I mean, yeah, it's still good for Clem. It's could have been so much worse. Maru's going to have to be happy that he saved 1 unit here, as he also was hoping to maybe catch a lock on, but doesn't. Scan reveals a 3rd CC. That's actually a 2nd scan in like 30 seconds, which I got to say, in professional TVT is kind of rare.
Expensive.
Yeah, very expensive.
Raven.
That's why it's rare.
That Cyclone just lost the lock on there, which is unfortunate because that Raven was a couple shots away from dropping down. Clem can now repair it as we see both players getting their 3rd up. There is that Reaper just scouting in, just double checking on everything around this base. Again, Maru's going to be a little bit faster to 1-1 upgrade, so his engineering base just working sooner for him, slightly faster to the combat shield. That's not the end of the world for Clem. Eventually you kind of catch up a little bit on upgrades, but it is going to create some timing windows for Maru, especially in Marine-on-Marine fights.
If it does get that to that point, you know, something that we were talking about in the last game, and well, it ended before the upgrades actually ended up mattering. Speaking of upgrades that could be under fire, absolutely. Goodbye combat shields, auto turrets, and Vikings dealing with that. However, for combat shields to lose out on this many units, was that worth it, Wardy?
I really want to say no. Combat Shield is something which you're just going to start up again, then you're going to get it going. However, Maru doesn't have a lot on the low ground anymore, so maybe that's an opportunity as Clem just moves forward. He's going to find 2 siege tanks here. A couple of SCVs still there as well. I think Clem's realized he's maybe sticking around a bit too long. It's so expensive because you now have no Ravens, and Ravens are so good in TVT. If you get rid of your opponent's Ravens, it's like, oh, okay, whatever. That was all of Clem's air control, his Ravens as well. I cannot in any world say I love this. Yeah,
he must have thought it just would have taken longer to actually get into the main base, right? But it really was just a hop from the 3rd to the main to deflect that. And very unfortunate. You know, if it was Stim that was 90% done, I think it might be worth it. But even that is very questionable. But combat shields, while obviously an important upgrade, it doesn't feel like it nearly as impactful. You don't reset the entire Marine tech, you know? And here come the Ravens of Maru to break Clem's 3rd base defense. Only 1 tank firing right now. Not at all protected as they all go down. And Clem now in a bit of trouble on his own 3rd base.
Yep, this is the immediate counterattack because Maru knows, hey, I've got Ravens and you don't, so 3 tanks go down for Clem extremely quickly. I feel like they were way too exposed for the position he was in. He should have been able to know a little bit more that this was going to be a problem. Clem does have 1 Raven. It finds 1 single Matrix. The Vikings landing, though, for Maru, and he's just going to get so much done. This is a decisive fight with 1-1 in his favor as well. Clem made an unnecessary move in that main base, and it did not pay off for him at all.
Perhaps too caught up a little bit in the momentum, into the speed of the game. That was not at all worth it, and then not well, not defending the counterattack perhaps as much as he could have. Now, I don't think he could have ever actually defended no problem. There was always problems there. But to try and defend that third base like he did, just sacrifice the tanks that could have, again, actually kind of similar to Maru in the first game, could have been drawn back to defend a more common choke point and then have times with the Marines on the front line. So almost a similar ending in some ways for that TVT. But now we have a tied-up series. Maru striking back, making calm decisions and the wise decisions of TVT, where Clem definitely a little brash there.
Yeah. He didn't even really, like, if he just dropped the auto turrets and then backed away, he probably would have got the combat shield cancel and would have kept his units alive. It was just so unnecessary. I mean, maybe land the Vikings still, but the Ravens could have been long gone. And then he kind of chose to fight it as well. Very interesting choice. Again, the early game definitely went well for Clem. Definitely feel like he made it work out for himself. Good grenades to stop the repair there. Could stop this medevac drop as well. So just in general, he's putting himself in a great spot. But yeah, this really didn't work out too well for him. And even cleaning up these couple tanks wasn't expensive, because then he was low HP Marines with no medevacs to heal up. So that wasn't exactly great either. And yeah, Maru just immediately knowing the right thing to do, getting across that map, hitting the timing before Clem could really recover. And just being very decisive in his movements to tie this series 1-1.
Yeah, and even if, again, Clem had managed to hold on somehow in the 3-base setup, his Marines were properly protecting his tanks, his other tanks were sieged up with them, so on, the upgrades would have become a problem. Like, there was the situation afterwards was 100% going to be Clem trying to claw his way back against Maru, which is not the situation you want to be in. So now we go a fresh game 3 in the top left, putting a point on the board. He is Onside Gaming's Maru.
In the bottom right, representing Team Liquid, our blue Terran player is Clem. It's so easy to get caught up in those moments, right? You know, it's like, oh, I got a position here. Oh, I see an exposed tech lab. It's like, this is it, right? Like, this is an opportunity. Drop a couple tech, you know, auto turrets, drop the Vikings, kill it, get out. He was just probably amazed at how fast Maru got into that main base to defend, and what seems like a pretty cool opportunity soon becomes a very bad decision, and then he doubled down on as well. Like, just so tough.
Yeah, I think a misjudgment of how fast Maru would respond. In hindsight, you kind of look at it and you're like, oh, well, yeah, they're also flying units, so they can respond pretty quickly. But yeah, getting a little too caught up, and Maru, even though he did lose out in some of the earlier micro wars, just played that clean, solid TVT that we know he can play. I also have no doubts that in this entire best of 5, Maru will also have a game or 2 or 3, of course, where he does win the earlier micro wars. Well, I guess he can only win 2 more, to be fair. But yeah, he wins the earlier micro wars. It just has been a little bit of that Clem momentum, and then whether or not Clem can deliver on the momentum of final killing blow.
Yeah. It definitely feels like so far it's been kind of Clem's best shot at a series, right? Because he's had that early game momentum. That feels like where he is going to have a chance.
Yeah.
So to not capitalize on that in a second game, especially when you know even if you get to a lead, Maru might pull it back from there, might feel a little bit tough. But you can also say, hey, so far I have been winning. Maybe I can just keep on doing that in the early game as well and put myself in those positions a little more often still. And
that really is a question that we have to consider, is that can Clem actually bring it in the same way in a mid or late game TVT, you know? Because I think all of us are kind of excited by the potential of Clem's micro against Maru's early game micro. And we're like, yeah, no, like Clem's also a really fast player and he's really cool and he's young, which apparently all the Korean players are worried about. But the mid game, where it's a little more that standard TVT, is he still better than Maru? And then that late game, is he still better than Maru? And basically most people would say no to the late game, maybe the mid game. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason Maru was so good in this matchup, and the reason wasn't because he won early game fights. In fact, a lot of the time he lost in the early game, but his excellence was being able to survive and drag it out and get to a point in the later game, especially because you can't kill someone easily in TVT a lot of the time. So he would just say, oh, I lost out in the early game, that's okay, let me just be a master of the late game and outplay you there. And that's what made him the absolute god of TVT that he was throughout the last couple of years. So yeah, I think when you look at this, you got to say that Clem's best chances are definitely the earlier in the game that it is.
Yeah. Pretty much what he tried to do in last game and successfully in the first game. Get some early micro wins and then deliver a bit of a push into what happens to then snowball into a killing blow. If it doesn't happen, if Maru gets to 3-base setup with a proper number of tanks and all of his upgrades, still in combat shields, then Clem has really got to start to worry. Not to say that Clem hasn't also improved in that department, by the way. He absolutely has, but it's Maru, man. He doesn't really need to be explained as much. We're just like, Maru, TVT, you guys figure it out.
Yep. Yeah, that's very true. As the first Raven on the way, by the way, this SCV spots the couple of Reapers coming in, so the Cyclone can move quickly. Costs you an SCV, but it probably now is like you lose one SCV instead of losing like 3 if you had no immediate response into the mineral line, so I don't hate that little scouting setup from Clem. As again, we just continue to Ravens on both sides. Clem, a little bit more confident, just CC on that low ground, right, is just very nice for him. A little advantage he will gain where Maru still has to do the lifting and the moving and the landing of that command center, so again, kind of minor differences early game TVT, and that's typically what happens. Maru will also be faster to the third CC than Clem, so you know, you give some, you take some. That's kind of where we're at in these early games.
And also going again to what we were saying, which is that Clem might want to try and make sure to get a couple more units go. Oh, second starport, for instance, as opposed to getting into that third CC to mimic his opponent's build, because that just means if you're mimicking him, and you're going to both get to that mid game. Now, I do something a little bit different, a little more, perhaps, production, and then maybe another building. And the second starport really does make this quite committed by Clem. I like that he's choosing to do this. But you know, I actually don't think of this as a Clem thing very much.
No, to me this is a special. This is a Hero Marine. It's a more technical Terran player build, not a Clem who just, you know, is about that micro and so on. So let's see how he does this. Obviously, double starport, it's powerful, but you are delaying that third CC heavily to the point where this is oftentimes just seen as an all-in. Second starport allows you to obviously get a couple of Ravens up and then really power up the Viking count. So you have the air control, you can maybe even add a couple Liberators in behind it as well once you have air control, so you can just get one big push that's extremely powerful across the map. And with this, you'll just never stop producing siege tanks as well to make sure you have as much power as possible able to get across and siege. Whereas you can see here, Maru, at the moment, not building a siege tank, right? So just little differences in how they're setting up.
It really abuses, you know, the two more powerful units in this matchup. But the problem is that eventually what Maru is doing with Baya, with the Marine production, is that it overwhelms. So it is a matter for Clem, there's a little supply block there, it is a matter of him actually getting across the map and getting a siege up and actually kind of being swift with blows. You know, maybe not the killing blow, but swift actually damaging the natural, getting into the SCV line, and really putting the pressure on Maru. If this kind of gets like hiccuped and stalled out and something awry goes in the middle of the map, then it gets really, really weird for the two starport play. But so far, guys, Maru does not know that this is happening, right? Like, I think he might have been scanning last game, you know, as consideration for this happening, but he has not done so in this game number 3.
Does he have any tanks? Because he is just, I haven't seen one in production tab. He has one siege tank. Like, yeah, he has an extra Raven, but man, he has nothing to hold. As now he scans, now he knows. Well, immediately drops down a missile turret. I mean, I guess that is a start, but can't say I'm in love with this for Maru. Let's see what he will do to pull out a defense here. The thing is, I mean, he might have Stim very soon, but oh, and he actually loses the Cyclone as well. Oh, goodness, this does not look fun.
Yeah, after using some Raven energy. That was not ideal. Missile turrets, I mean, stalls out the push, technically, I guess. Another missile turret stalls out the push, technically, I suppose. Maru's in a lot of trouble. That one tank that he has gets Matrix. It's done. It's dead. The natural has to be given up. Maru's only chance here is to really build up to a potential base trade. He's got Medivacs and Marines. He should be thinking about going across the map and making about it as weird as possible. Yes, he is. He took a very direct path, realizing nothing would stop him. Let's see if the potential base trade has promise.
Yep, that is what this is going to come down to, a possible base trade. We do have some Vikings defensively, a tank that's going to get dropped on top of. One Medivac will fall. Clem will just pull the SCVs. If he can shut this down, there's a pretty realistic situation where he is just in a great position because he is going to do so much over here still, and Maru knows it. GG's Clem picks up game 3.
Sheesh. That was almost easy.
Yeah.
Too easy. This is not suspicious.
That's what happens when you don't see it coming.
No, absolutely.
And Maru just did nothing to protect himself from this kind of build, right? He was straight into Stim. He was straight into Tech Labs, Combat Shield, 1-1 upgrades. Yeah, he built 3 Ravens, but that was pretty much all that he built.
Yeah. No, he was totally unprepared because I think with his build, you are in a very complicated situation, but again, maybe you could do something that stalls out the push a little bit more. You know, kind of get those Marines and Medivacs on the front and just go boom, and then the tanks are like, oh god, I have to siege. But it was nothing. Like, literally the tanks and the Vikings, the Ravens, got up to his natural without him able to do anything about it. The only thing he did was scout it in that process, which is not enough.
I think important as well that Clem had the foresight to defend. Right, pre-siege tanks, couple of Vikings there ready to protect the tank position as well. Because if those Marines get in, there's no units, like Clem is just rallying across the map, for example, or, you know, he just doesn't stop the Medivacs quickly, these Marines do mega damage, and he might do mega damage as well, but then it's only that set of units, and it becomes a lot more pressuring for Clem to get something done. So, yeah, very, I mean, solid game choice or build choice from Clem. But again, he's definitely playing on the fortune or the misfortunes of Maru in this series, right? Where, you know, first game, Maru had his Marines a bit out of position. Second game or third game here, Maru just doesn't get the scout off.
You know, this is actually a bit reminiscent of the GSL games of Maru and Gumiho, if I remember correctly, which is that Maru was playing a lot of the, actually even 2-base style, like 2-1-1 openers off the 2-Rax Reaper. And at first he did it versus TY, and I was like, oh, well, TY is kind of a passive player, and he probably thinks that he's better as long as he can be mobile. But then he did it against Gumiho, and Gumiho just kind of got in there just as Clem did in that game, not with the same build, but same idea, and kind of just like got in as soon as Maru thought he was ready to go, and then actually successfully killed him. Did not give him a chance to come back. So, I mean, perhaps it's just coincidence, or maybe Clem did check out those games and got some inspiration, but in this case, it was just a really great build order, not being scouted for so long.
Yep, absolutely. Clem got to be feeling good, but you can't feel too good, right? 2-1 lead is nice, but we know Maru can pull it back. He did in the GSL semifinals, 0-2, 3-2, right? So do not doubt what this man here can do. He is absolutely capable of pulling this back. It's not maybe been the greatest of early games for him thus far, but, you know, we kind of said at the start of this one, at some point that might just have to turn around anyways. At some point, Maru's got to have a good early game, right?
Yes, yeah, I mean, we say it, and I think it is still very, very possible, but right now, Clem looking to be potential winner of this best of 5, move on to the semifinals of Gamers8. You know, we are always talking about the two narratives here. Clem not performing as well as we know he can offline, finally doing it here as he reaches the round of 8, which is already spectacular, dangerously close to the round of 4. Maru not able to pick up another big international tournament victory, like actual championship winning first place. He got very close in Katowice, and we thought the stars aligned for him, but they aligned for Oliveira. So it's the stories that are clashing right now. We'll see if the story works out well for Clem as he now leads the series. Move on to Dragon Scales in the bottom right as the blue Terran for Team Liquid. He is Clem.
Once again, behind in this series and looking to mount a comeback. High Red Terran player from Onside Gaming, Maru.
Oof, it's weird to worry for Maru, but every time we start to, that's when he brings it back. So in a weird way, Maru fans start worrying, question mark? That's when he starts doing well. It's when he brings it back, even when he's kind of not supposed to, is the phrase I'm going to use, because I am thinking about his Maru Cure series for GSL, not the one that was played at Gamers8, which is that 2 games were very smooth for Cure. And then even the 3rd and 4th game, I feel like, Cure had really good chances to win. And the 5th, if I recall correctly, was a little more lopsided. But yeah, Maru, he's got some magic in his ability to make comebacks. He's the best at them because he knows how to do it. But then it seems like he also kind of gets into his opponent's head because they start worrying as well. They're like, oh my god, he's going to make the comeback happen because he didn't die to my Reaper. Oh no.
It's almost an unfair advantage when you're that good that people are worried about you, and then, you know.
They're worried when they're ahead against you.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Clem straight into that reactor, no concerns, man. He does not think Maru's going to put it all on a 2-Rax right now, so he goes reactor first. Is a little bit greedy, but it'll pay off for him because Maru's not doing anything that would punish that. So just gets you the reactor sooner. Eventually you're going to end up with the faster Reapers, and that means that you're going to be able to just take a nice little early game position once again here as Clem.
Yeah, that's a little dangerous against Maru, who can 2-Rax, and if that 2-Rax is proxied both barracks and the first Reaper actually comes up here, it'll do a lot of damage for those 2 Reapers pop out. But taking a little bit of a gamble, I suppose, that Maru will not proxy 2-Rax. And I don't think at this point Maru will go into like a 2-Rax at home to lead into a 2-1-1, because that type of aggression really has not been working out for him.
Yep. As that first Hellion on the way from Clem, obviously I think you begin to ask yourself here, how many Reapers does Clem go into? How aggressive does he try and be in this early game? CC on the low ground, as will Maru. Maru's just a little bit faster, again, slight differences in build order choices, as we are sitting on Dragon Scales. Has got that ramp up into the natural, so some of this early kind of Reaper Hellion pressure is a bit harder to execute initially as well, because you don't have vision moving into the natural straight away, so That might work in Maru's favor if Clem was looking to be the aggressor.
I have seen Clem win quite a few games just running up the ramp on Dragon Scales and winning despite a fine concave from his opponent. You're just like, well, this should be okay. And then the opponent crumbles. But I think we've seen similar things from Maru as well. So perhaps some explosion soon to come. As both of them get a decent amount of early game units, but Clem once again going for more of those early game units, continuing to make the Reapers and Hellions.
He has a 1 Reaper advantage here. So Maru's defender's advantage has to kind of kick in straight away. Clem gonna get himself set. You think he's gonna go for a ZG? I definitely think he is. Here we go. Hellions gonna take the first shots, which is absolutely perfect as well. That first Reaper and Maru gonna go down too, so that's a good start as well. Now a second ramp, but you're already having the low ground, now in trouble.
That's true, but there's much worse things that could have happened right there. If Maru were to lose a second Reaper on the low ground, then the race up to the high ground continues for Clem, and we really start to worry. The execution of the grenade into the pullback being basically within milliseconds of seeing that they're actually going for it is so important. Clem has taken advantage of people who are just, 5 milliseconds late. But more aggression, actually. Reapers in the main, Hellions in the natural.
Yep, he's got actually a lot of units in this natural. Gets a fresh mule as well. He should go up the ramp into the main base. I almost feel like his Reapers did get cleaned up, it seems, as he just gets a couple of SCVs that were here. He's not going to be able to take on the siege tank, however, so time to just back it up. Take a few SCVs, just take what you can, stop the mining on the natural as well, as it looks as those Reapers did get out, so actually he did keep a few alive. It was a cool 1-2 play. He knew exactly what Maru was going to do, and he completely took advantage. And he also took down the early Marines of Maru, which really depowers some of his initial army.
Oh, that's a very good point. Yes, 5 Marines dead right there. But Maru, also kudos to him to dealing with that so smoothly. First the main, then the natural can sometimes go really wacky because the natural does take too much damage. But in this case, it was very appropriate. So definitely familiar with that tactic, I think. Maru has also used the same thing. And so doesn't let that snowball. But as you're pointing out, Clem managed to get some favors there regardless. He did kill a couple of Marines, affecting later stages of the early game, I guess, as well as a slight economic lead. Talk about like 1.5. Well, okay, now up to 3 SCV lead for Clem.
Well, turret will go down. A couple of SCVs will begin to drop, so getting some good damage done already. This does, 3 SCVs as well. Gets 4, okay, his Hellions in his main base, but that was a lot of damage dealt there, and now these units run too far forward as well. One more tank shot just doesn't go off. And Clem defends very well. He deals some good damage. Yes, it costs him a bit of Raven energy, but I think you can tell Maru knows this is not going great for him early game.
No, there's the tiniest bit of emotion. That's not good. That's weird.
And that is where Maru's world crumbles.
Exactly. Oh, he definitely knows this has not worked out for him once again. Now, I don't think he's actually truly worried about losing the game. I think he is just frustrated that he can't seem to get a handle on the early game going into the mid game. He has to then say, okay, I'll do the mid game into late game thing, which, historically has worked out fine for him, but I'm sure he wishes some of his games have gone a little bit faster. But right now, after being killed, actually, from the early game mistakes, and Maru now in his last life, maybe he is worrying a little bit more.
Yeah, no, definitely very high potential of that as Clem still has some of these Reapers as well. So annoying because it just means you can never not defend your main base. If they hop in, kill a bunch of SCVs, it's so frustrating. So just more defense needed for Maru, more consideration about what's still about on the map. And for the first time in the series, I think, Clem actually getting like a faster stim, like a little bit of a faster setup into bio just in general. And it's way faster because of the way this game has gone.
Stim's incredibly fast compared to Maru right now. The barracks production actually technically a little bit faster for Maru, but then if you're going to be waiting for stim and combat shields, the game continues on. It's simply not as big of a deal usually, but again, Maru pretty comfortable in these positions where he has to make the comeback. What's really important though is that he does get his 3cc up. Like, that's when Maru makes comebacks. That's when Terrans make comebacks. 3cc on location. We defended that much. Okay, now we can do anything in the world. 2 bases just doesn't cut it in Legacy of the Void. So I'm sure Clem, not just wanting to continue with the momentum once again, but then also thinking of that as well, will continue to aggress. Last time he had this position, he was aggressive too much. He ran into the main base and killed the combat shields. It wasn't worth it. I'm sure this time around he'll be thinking of that and won't be as hyper to get some more damage done. This is not looking good for Maru.
This is really bad if Clem sees it because he's got 2 Vikings here as well. He can obviously drop some mortar turrets to help out, and it doesn't even matter if you Matrix the Vikings. We get one of the Ravens. He actually got to get away with his own Raven, but Clem didn't spend Raven energy, right? So not only do you get a Raven, but you force all the Raven energy, and Maru just can't catch a break.
Oh no, man, that is not a good sign. You just do not see Maru that's again, emotional, so that's why I'm laughing. I'm not, like, I don't want Maru to lose. I'm not like, the Korean's gonna lose, like, But I do think that that's just a super big sign. First, it was like, okay, you can do that. You can be disappointed your Helens don't do damage, but you know you're Maru. You're going to bring this back. And then one of the comeback maneuvers you're going to make is sending the Ravens across, and that doesn't work. And now this happens as well. Everything Maru is doing is getting shut down.
Come on, like, can he actually do it? It's ridiculous, right? I mean, Clem's just catching so many breaks. He's making so many things happen. Maru's going to load up a bunch of stuff. If I'm Maru right now, that's the last thing I want to do because nothing else has worked.
Oh my god. Oh my, I think
goodness.
Clem is going to do this, and he's going to make this look relatively easy. The entire series, Wardy, he's going to make this look easy. He's going to take down Maru in a best-of-5 offline TVT, and he's going to look dominant in it.
Clem needs to go, though, right? Because these medevacs are going across the map, so if he just starts pulling back, this is actually where it is good for Maru, because his attack will hit. That was a moment where Clem could have matrixed everything.
I think he just realized that there's no third CC, right? He's like, there's a suspicious lack of energy on Maru's side of the map. I got to pull back because he's got drops headed across the map, but he pulls back and it's still too late. Clem's natural now under fire. Maru finally, the third attempt to get something across the map is actually working out.
Gets double matrix down, so he will begin to clean this up. I don't think these medevacs are getting out of here either. We're going to attempt to get out to that right side. Double engineering bay lost. So Clem does not have upgrades, but he will perhaps still have a pretty good army here. He's going to lose the Raven, however, so no Raven energy left, and that's one thing that's going to make it a lot tougher. He's going to lose the other Raven too. Maru making plays when most necessary, and he is going to now actually have a Raven advantage, although down 4 siege tanks, man. Clem is back in the middle of the map.
Yeah, I mean, that's great that Maru finally got something done, and it's a bit more of a game, but then Clem still has this army moving across the map. Maru's third base completely undefended because his army is once again racing across. It's going to be a base trade, but with Clem having the army supply, he doesn't have the upgrades. May be an issue, but only if his tanks are not involved. His Marines will gun down Maru's third CC. Maru looking to do the same thing on Clem's side of the map.
Gets the Raven, though, so Clem gets one of the big things, shoots down one medevac as well, so taking healing out of the equation to some extent here. Clem has a huge supply lead to take this base trade with, but decision-making is so important in these base trades as that ain't fun either.
Oh man, Maru trying to send out a medevac there, I'm not sure. Like, it just ran over the Marines. Very unfortunate. Maru supply dismal compared to Clem's, and upgrades can only do so much. Clem will have to stim once again, or maybe he's wise enough not to, because he doesn't have medevacs with this army. He can let the tanks do the talking as he makes sure that his home base is well defended. He's got his 2 bases back under wraps. His third TC is still alive. His upgrades, though, have only just begun, and Maru is trying to set up a trap. Clem actually figuring that one out, is going to dart to the right, dart to the left, trying to outmaneuver Maru as Maru comes back to his home.
Yeah, Clem realizes he doesn't necessarily want to stay out there on the map, but he also realizes he kind of wants to find a way back home, join his armies up, because if Maru can leap on half the army, then the other half, maybe that's where Maru's army supply can do something. If Clem gets everything together, it's going to be extremely tough for Maru, who does not have his third in location just yet, where Clem does once again. It does feel as though Clem's in the better spot. We may have base trade V2, but there's still just not a lot of stuff for Maru here, and Clem has massive air superiority as well.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the upgrades just don't seem like they're going to matter against what Clem has. Maru has to continue making this a very weird game. He tries to take a stand back at home as he sent his main over to the third, guys. That was still not a very good situation, but Maru has once again tried to initiate this base trade. Natural is under attack. Clem might have to sacrifice that to get some more siegers up on the high ground. Make sure that your production is not camped. A key role for Terran here, as Maru does start to blitz up the ramp. He would leave his tanks behind.
Clem's coming back, though. He's going to decide to just come and fight this straight up. He's going to get all of his tanks siege. He's going to start knocking the tanks down of Maru. Is it enough? He is going to get the last couple. Now all Maru has on offense is a handful of Marines running into the main base, but that's defended, and Clem shuts down everything from Maru, and Clem has a mass of Marines on Maru's side of the map, and he is looking as though he might be our first semi-finalist.
He absolutely is. The supply is now double that of Maru, as Clem's little hit squad even has something to say. It's 2-2 versus 0-0, guys. That's why Clem couldn't do anything right there. But that was an insignificant part of his army. There it is. Clem with a 3-1 victory over Maru advances on to the semifinals in Gamers8.
His first victory against Maru in so long, and at such a big event. Clem, who we typically talk about struggling at these bigger offline tournaments, shows up, takes down Maru, puts himself into the semi-finals. And he just played such a solid series. He took control of games, he played the right situations, and even when Maru makes it complicated, he had the right responses to the base trade setups and all the rest.
Exactly. It's just not at all the best of 5 I was expecting, you know? So when Maru started to lose out, it just felt like, oh, well, this is weird. I just feel weird casting this. Maru was supposed to bring it back with the Ravens or the Vikings or the drops that actually did not end up being all that impactful because they were cleaned up so easily. Almost a weird world that we're in, but one that I'm happy we are as Clem moves on to the semifinals.
Clem, what an incredible series against one of the best players in the world right now. You took more maps off Maru in this match than you have in the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy when you think about it. I'm shaking right now.
Yeah, I'm going to let you take your breath right there and ask you a real long question. I want to know a little bit about who you prepared with, how you prepared for this match. Was this the late hours last night? Was this months ahead?
Well, honestly, I just tried to take it relaxed. Like I didn't want to play too many games this morning because I was like, I don't want to get too stressed out. I was just relaxing by the pool, and then Rainer saw me like chilling by the pool. He was like, "Are you not practicing?" I was like, "I'm just relaxing," and he was like, "Are you giving up already?" I'm like, "No." Yeah, I was trying to take it chill, but when I was at home before this tournament, I was practicing a little bit with Spirit, but it's quite hard getting TVT practice in Europe, so it's never easy. But yeah, I guess it's a miracle.
زي ما تشوفون كليم معنا في معلومه لازم تعرفونها اعزائنا المشاهدين انه في خلال السنتين الماضيه قدر مارو انه يواجه كليم مرات عديده 18 ماب في كل المابات اللي هو واجهه فيها ما قدر يفوز الا مرتين فقط ففي هذه السيريز كليم قدر انه يحصل على عدد انتصارات اكثر من السنتين كامله اللي صار قبل شوي شيء مو طبيعي سالنا كليم وش شعورك كان قاعد يرتجف وسالناه ايضا عن تجهيزات المباراه هذه يقولون لنا صراحه انا ما جهزت للمباراه هذه كثير لاني ما بغيت اني اضغط نفسي كثير حرفيا طول اليوم قاعد في الفندق وقاعد اني ارتاح قاعد في المسبح وحتى يسالوني اللاعبين الثانيين انه ليش انت ما تدربت يقولون انه انا ما راح اتدرب انا ما راح اتعب نفسي عشان اوصل لما اللحظه هذه فعلا قدر يسويها.
You call it a miracle, but I know it's the result of hard work, of planning, and a lot of strategic thinking. And now you're being able to do it on LAN, you're here in person, and you're crushing. What does that mean to you to take your online results and bring them offline?
That means a lot. It's definitely my biggest offline win of my career. It means a lot, and I really hope I can do it in the semifinals as well. But I'm already super happy. The goal I kind of had in mind was if I could make top 8, I would be happy. Now getting top 4 is amazing.
سألنا أيضا كلمة السؤال الثاني في المقابلة نتكلم عن وش اللي زي ما تقول طموحه على تواجده في هذه البطولة خصوصا أنه يعني الآن يعتبر هو زي ما هو قالها هي حرفيا أفضل فوزه سواها في الكارير حقه كامل فالآن قاعد يقول أنه أنا صراحة بتواجدي في البطولة هذه ما كنت متوقع أني أبوصل التوب 4 أنا بس كان تركيزي على أن يكون في التوب 8 لكن أنا جدا مبسوط وحتى لو أني ما فزت البطولة كاملة أنا مبسوط جدا باللي قاعد أسويها الآن ويتمنى أنه يفوز السيمي فاينلز.
It's incredible to hear that you're surpassing even your own expectations for this event. The sky's the limit. Well, championship's the limit. We'll see if you can win this one and ride this momentum all the way there. But do you want to talk to any fans, anyone that's been practicing with you, anyone out there watching?
Well, I just want to thank everyone who's been cheering for me all of this time. And just cheer for me in the semi-finals as well. That would be amazing. And yeah, thanks to my friends who are watching the games as always. Et merci les gars. Merci à tous les viewers français. Vous êtes géniaux. Merci.
زي ما تشوفون كليب اعطيناه فرصه انه يقول شيء لكل المعجبين واللي جالسين يدعمونه وحتى كل اللاعبين اللي دربوا معه عشان يقدر يكون في هالمستوى يفضل او يقدر يصير هو الافضل ما بين كل اللاعبين في العالم حتى اللحظه هذه كان يقول بس انه شكرا لكل الناس اللي يدعموني خصوصا اصدقائي اللي دائما هم اصلا يتابعون كل مبارياتي وحاب اني اشكرهم في هذه اللحظه.
Clem, it's so easy to cheer for you. You're a joy to watch, you're a wonderful personality, and I hope that you get everything you want out of this tournament. We're going to send it back to the studio to take another look at your matches.
لازم المحللين الآن يتكلمون عن كل شيء صار في التفاصيل في هذه المباراة لأن كليم يهزم مارو في هزيمة حرفيا سنتين كاملة وهو جالس يفوز عليه فقط مرتين لكن الآن قدر يفوز عليه 3 مرات في نفس الجيم مو طبيعي اللي قاعد يصير على طول نروح للمحللين نتكلم أكثر.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Clem. One of the biggest wins of his career, maybe even the biggest win of his career, stunting the growth of Maru here when he looked unbelievable when it came to the Swiss format, and Clem makes the round of 4. What a result for him. Joining me, Nick and Dan, to talk about this one. Nick, this was I'm going to be honest, it was unprecedented. Clem has been able to topple Maru after Maru previously destroyed Clem in previous meetings.
Yeah, you know, but one thing to note is that Maru, just like we saw earlier in this year, I mean, losing to Oliveira, TVT, if he's going to be weak in one matchup, it seems like this is it. And I think it's about time that Clem's work really, hard work, I should say, really paid off. And this is, you know, the moment he gets to enjoy the fruits of his labor. He did it. And I honestly, Maru is probably the biggest hurdle for any player in the entire tournament. I thought this was going to be the most obvious result ever and that Maru would win.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that Clem's done it here, who knows how far he can go.
He looked unbelievable in that group stage, but it's not to be the case here. Clem comes here and looks unbelievable against Maru, Dan.
Yeah. I mean, anytime he starts to get an edge, he is maybe the best player in the world from those winning positions. It's just getting there, and he was able to do that against Maru. You know, actually, his interview, I think, was very, very telling. How he just went to the pool and focused on relaxation this morning. That's actually incredibly important. We've seen that so many times with StarCraft Pro gamers where the ones that are not sitting there putting in the absolute most games, but instead are already prepared and are trying to relax, are oftentimes the ones that perform better than expected. So really great to see that from Clem, and I hope that he continues it going forward.
Yeah, definitely. As we take a look back at the games here from STC Play, and we see that, you know, again, just in terms of this scenario as well, where Maru's trying to find answers to what Clem's throwing at him, but he can't find it, Nick.
No, he really can't. And I think Clem, he, especially in that final game, showed a lot of patience. He got the lead, but you know, Maru's oftentimes when he's behind, able to kind of force a base trade, and then he's so good in those situations. So Clem taking that lead, but then also knowing when to pull back and when to try to defend and try to cement his lead and just kind of drain Maru of any opportunities. It was really cool to see.
Surprise after surprise for today. I cannot believe Clem has just done that and looking as great as he did. Again, you know, when you see Maru in TVT, Dan, he looks nigh on untouchable, but Clem is able to do it. He goes from a guaranteed $16,000 to a guaranteed $30,000 with that victory. And if there was ever, I'm going to have to eat my words from previous tournaments, if there was ever a Clem doesn't bring it offline, it's gone. He just defeated Maru here on this stage.
He didn't just defeat Maru, he defeated Dark earlier as well. So he's definitely putting out the high-quality games. I mean, that's a couple GSL champions, a couple finalists going at it.
Exactly.
I mean, Clem's in great shape, and we can actually expect more from him, I think. If you can beat Maru and you can beat Dark, you can also beat Raynor and Beyond, who one of them is going to be his next opponent.
He could go all the way. What a run that would be if we're able to see it. Thank you very much, boys. Time for a break here at Gamers8. What a start here to the main tournament for the round of 8. Join us after this for a lot more.